On this episode of the Bangkok Podcast, we talk about traffic in Thailand, specifically the 7 deadly days of Songkran, and a few ideas that we think would be useful in helping to reduce Thailand's awful road safety statistics.
And we talk about what men do when their wives go away or won't go away. Don't worry, it's not as bad as it sounds.
Let's roll. Here's episode 2.27 of the Bangkok Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian expat who came to Thailand on a vacation in 2001 and never left.
And I am Ivo Terra, an American expat living full-time in Bangkok since the beginning of 2016. Thanks for joining us and welcome to the Big Mango.
So Ivo, I'm going to give you a little quiz here.
All right.
My wife, my son, her mother, and her sister have taken off for the long weekend. They're on a beach and I've stayed home because I got some work to do. Mm-hmm. So I'm all alone by myself on the long weekend. Right. What do you think I've been doing? A single man, family out of town in Bangkok.
How many times have you inappropriately touched yourself?
Okay, this isn't a math podcast, but let me tell you what I'm doing. I'm playing video games all weekend. I've shut the door, I've locked it, I've got a fridge full of food and water, and a new video game. That's all I'm doing.
You are perpetually 16, aren't you?
Yeah, this is a vague attempt to recapture my youth. But it's working pretty well. My hair started growing back and I'm losing weight.
Man, you have all of Bangkok at your disposal and you are choosing to sit home and play with yourself. Literally.
Yeah, I am playing with myself. I know it's kind of sad, but this is a great video game. And this is the only chance I have to ignore everything and concentrate solely on the video game. So I'm taking it, baby.
And listen, I have been in your shoes, well, similar shoes. I mean, I've obviously had a wife and a small child with me at home all the time. And when they leave and you've got a mother-in-law that's associated with that as well, which takes up some of your space, that's a lot, and getting that. I know I cherish those solo times alone. I get it. And mine has been interrupted in the opposite direction because my wife, who usually goes to work every single day, has been off for the last 2 weeks. And so I have to share an apartment with another human being again during the day. And I just don't know how to act.
Oh, great. Now I got to wear pants and stuff.
Well, she's seen me naked, so it's not that big of a deal. But, it's just, you just forget how things are when you have all of your own time and then you got to deal with somebody else. But, it's...
What do you mean I got to do my dishes right after I'm done eating them? I can't leave them in the sink for 4 or 5 hours?
More importantly for her, it's like, wait, I got to do your dishes too? Wait a minute. Oh, that's right. You're the one with the job and I'm the semi-retired house husband. Yeah, I guess.
Well, we're on opposite ends of the spectrum, but we're both stuck at home. So
living life in Bangkok, baby.
Well, this is funny because this weekend is a long weekend. It's not actually a long weekend. Thursday was a holiday, but Friday a lot of people took off for work. So it's technically a long weekend, but it's interesting because next weekend is not just a long weekend as well. It's the long weekend, the biggest long weekend of the Thai year.
Yeah, that's Songkran for the new people out there. It is a huge, crazy celebration. Famously, it marks Thailand's third New Year celebration. That's right. We had the real New Year when the calendar changed. We had the Chinese New Year when we just went to Chinatown and partied. And now we have Songkran, which is Thai's New Year. No calendar changing in Thailand. That's what it's famously known for. But what it's infamously known about when you live here in the kingdom is Songkran celebration is known as the 7 deadly days, or just 7 dangerous days. Although I like 7 deadly days better because, let's face it, Greg, a lot of people die in the coming week.
Yeah, Songkran is for those that don't know, it's usually a 3 or 5 day holiday. It's sort of like Christmas and Thanksgiving combined, where almost everyone heads out of Bangkok to a beach, upcountry to visit family. They go on trips out of town. So Bangkok is actually probably the nicest place to be during this time because no one's here. I mean, there's still millions of people here, obviously, but the traffic is great. You can go places on the SkyTrain and it's not crowded because everyone is doing the, what did you call it, the state-sanctioned water fight of 65 million people?
Right. That's what the whole celebration is about today in Thailand. But I'm looking forward to being here in Bangkok to the quiet time since everybody else took off for those 7 days. It'd be like if everybody in the country where you're from, listener, who's not from Thailand, if everybody in the country was off from Christmas to New Year's Day. Think how big of a party you would have. Yeah.
Plus, it's 38 degrees outside and everyone has a water gun. So as in addition to this massive water fight that goes on for several days, which is alternately fun or horrible depending on where you are and how many times you've been through it, there's also a time for, like Ivo said, a lot of accidents on the road. And Bangkok's already dangerous traffic statistics spike because, like you say, you combine party, time off, drinking, dancing, and having a good time with driving on Bangkok's somewhat uncontrolled roads. Thailand's somewhat uncontrolled roads, and it's a recipe for disaster. And I know we're making a few jokes here, but it's really not a very good thing to joke about because for the past 10 years, Ivo, you pulled up a few statistics here.
Yeah.
Since 2007, there have been an average of 350 deaths each Songkran.
Which is nuts.
It's crazy. It's insane. 350 deaths. And that doesn't count the anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 injuries and about the same 3,000 to 5,000 accidents in total. But it's not a fun time on the streets, and it's kind of a macabre reminder too, because every Songkran, the newspapers on the front page have a body count, a running body count. How many people have died this Songkran?
Yeah. It's just like, during the Vietnam War when they had the body counts listed at the end of the newscast. It's a very, very similar thing. And from 2015 to 2016, almost 80 more people died in 2016 than in 2015, just in those 7 days. And here's the crazy number. So last year, 442 people died during the 7 days of Songkran. Here's the amazing thing. On average, when there's a normal, just the rest of the year, on average, there's about 20 different recorded accidents every day. About 20 different, accidents. But in 1 day of day 2 of Songkran last year, 64 people. Wow. Think about that. That's a threefold. So you were 3 times as likely to die in an automobile injury on Thailand's roads during Songkran than any other time. So it's definitely a significant change, or not a significant change, but a significant problem that's have. And so our friends, the government, military junta, however you want to call them, the people that are in charge, decided that this year they were going to do something about it. This year they were going to crack down before Songkran to make sure that not as many people died.
Yeah, they say that every year. This year's going to be different. We promise you.
This year, if you might remember about this, we thought it was like a late April Fool's Day prank. But nonetheless, the military junta comes out and says, today is D-Day. If you are not wearing a seatbelt in a car, in a taxi, in a bus, if the vehicle you are in is equipped with seatbelts and you're not wearing it, we will write you a ticket right there on the spot. How much, you ask? $3. 100 baht.
Yeah, it's not really a deterrent, is it? And I think this is a great rule because let me give you a list here. I'm going to read you the top 5 countries in the world with the highest road fatalities per 100,000 inhabitants. Ready?
Go.
I'm going to count down from 5. The Democratic Republic of the Congo with 33.2 deaths per 100,000. Liberia with 33.7. Malawi with 35. Thailand with 36. And Libya with 73.
Wow.
It's quite a jump between 1 and 2, but still, Thailand is the second most dangerous country in the world when it comes to road fatalities.
Yeah, quite a jump between where we live and Libya.
Yeah, but it's still not a great shakes to go in number 2 behind Libya when it's something about this.
We are number 2, and so that's why they're putting this crackdown on, saying you've got to wear your seatbelts. They also said at the same time, no riding in the back of pickups. That is now a no-no, which, if you've seen a picture of anybody reveling in Songkran, I will bet you that one of those photos you've seen is about 9 people in the back of a pickup truck armed with big water guns and buckets filled of ice water. Pickup truck transportation is the main way people get around to back and forth in Songkran, and a lot of people out in the country as well. But yeah, no one can be in a pickup truck now, at least not in the bed of a pickup truck, and you must wear your seatbelt at all times. So they said. Yeah, and there was an immediate uproar because what they didn't really think about, surprise, surprise, government making declarations without really thinking it through, was that a lot of people in the poorer countries of Thailand and Isan and the south and things like that, that's really the only way they get around. There are no buses. There are no rural transportation networks. So you get 15, 20 people in the back of a pickup truck, and that's how you get out to your farm or your construction site or your building or whatever you have. So for a lot of people, there's just no other way to get around. They can't afford to buy a new motorcycle or a new car. So that sort of left them out in the cold, and they were like, wait a minute, there's no other option for us.
and you're going to start fining us for doing something that is a necessity?
Not just a necessity, but the way that... So we have buses because we live in Bangkok, but there are very, very small buses that are called Songtao, which I'm not pronouncing properly. How do you pronounce that word? The little bus. Songtao? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Something along those lines, right? Which is nothing but a pickup truck with a very lightweight aluminum and occasionally canvas shell over the top of it. That is a primary means of transportation. That is a public form of transportation. You get in, you pay your 3 baht, and you go 10 kilometers up the road. And in some towns, like Pattaya, for example, that is the bus. You are literally getting in the back of a pickup truck and riding around. So suddenly that's illegal?
Yeah, so unsurprisingly, there was quite an uproar about this. People are saying, whoa, 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 whoa. We don't all drive around in cars with seatbelts. Right. And even if you do get into a taxi in Bangkok, 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, there are no seatbelts in the back seat. If you look for them, they're not there.
No, cut out, or they're tucked underneath so far you can't get them. And I've tried, because I have been trying to follow this rule for the last week or so. And also, it's not just trying to follow the rule. Let's face it. If you're driving in a motor car, you should wear a seatbelt. Period.
Yeah.
End of story. There's a seatbelt right there. Put the damn thing on, Evo, I've said to myself, and I do, and I put it on every time. Well, when I can. As you just said, Greg, quite often those seatbelts in the back of these taxi cabs are non-existent, cut out, or impossible to get to. So I can't even abide by the law.
Yeah, and it's crazy what you said, because in Canada, we grew up like when I was a kid, my mom wouldn't start the car unless our seatbelts were done up. We weren't going anywhere unless the seatbelts were done up. And it's just something you're raised with. And it took me a while when I moved here to get used to not wearing a seatbelt in the back. Now it's second nature, which is outrageously dangerous, but it is what it is, right?
Right. So, yeah. It is. It's dumb. We've gotten lazy, and we need to be better at that. We live in a metropolitan area with 12 million people. We live in a country that is number 2 in road fatalities. Clearly, we need to be wearing our seatbelt. So I applaud the move of the government. Some may call it the nanny state if you want to, but I remember when the United States changed from seatbelts were a good idea to suddenly required. And I, like many people, when I was 18, 20 years old, bitched up a storm about it, but it has become, as you said, second nature, to the point where when I raised a kid 26 years ago, you're right. The key did not go in the ignition until everybody was buckled up. That's just a way it is. And seeing somebody without a seatbelt in America is anathema. It's like seeing somebody smoking in a restaurant. Oh, wait, we can do that here too.
Yeah, when I went back to Canada about 3 or 4 months ago with my wife and my son, I told my wife, like, if we're in a car, you and our son are wearing a seatbelt. I don't want you taking any pictures or anything like that where there's clearly no one wearing a seatbelt, because that's the first thing that people will point out. You posted on Facebook like, hey, why isn't your kid wearing a seatbelt? Yeah. Of course, we had a baby seat and everything like that, but it's still something that I had to mention. Like you and I were talking off air earlier, and I said it's gotten to the point now where I'm so used to riding in taxis without seatbelts that when I do find one with a seatbelt and I do put it on, I feel like the driver would almost be justified in turning around and saying, what, like, you think I can't drive safe?
Right.
You might take it like as a personal insult, because I often say that seatbelts aren't seatbelts here. They're not put on to save you. They're put on to avoid fines.
Right. That's pretty much exactly what it's come to.
So what can they do? What do you think they can do to sort of encourage us? I think this is a step in the right direction. It might be a little ham-fisted and poorly thought out, but sure. I think it needs to happen. Obviously, it needs to happen. But what else do you think can be done?
Well, I remember when this happened in America back in the 80s, and there was a big resistance, and a lot of people didn't do it. And the way it got through in the state I was from at the time, Oklahoma, is the cops, luckily, the highway patrol specifically, were all staunch advocates of seatbelts. Cops handed out a boatload of tickets to very angry people for a long time, busting them for not wearing their seatbelts. Okay, that happened for a while, months, maybe it was years, but it's now become second nature. If we have enforcement that follows it in Thailand, I think that's how they do it. Enforce the law, and it actually not even might, it will change if the people that are responsible for enforcing the laws actually enforce it.
That's a whole other podcast we can talk about. Yes. We probably won't do that one because we might get in trouble. But that's a whole other thing, is that no laws. There's plenty of laws in Thailand. Hardly any of them are enforced. Right. I think another good thing they can do is just it all comes down to education. And I think that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've got a sort of a grotesque sense of curiosity. And I've seen a lot of really awful pictures and videos on the internet of the aftermaths of these kind of things. So I know what can happen. And I just think that, and obviously not everyone's got that gross curiosity that I do, and probably for the better. But I don't think everyone in Thailand really knows, and not just Thailand, I mean, a lot of people too. There's plenty of people back in Canada and the US that have no idea either. But I think that you have to educate the kids about what can happen and how quickly something can go wrong. I remember in high school when they had these traveling shows that came around, you know, like everyone down to the gym today for some kind of a thing. It was a dance show or a motivational speaker or something like that.
Right.
They had one thing that came by and it was really great. And it was basically a trailer that looked like a trailer for a boat that you attached to the back of your car.
Oh.
But instead of that, you had a seat on the very back of this thing. And the seat was on a rail, on a track that went down to the front of the trailer. And you got strapped into this seat and you could simulate a car accident at like 10, 20, 40, and 50 kilometers an hour. And they would just basically go 3, 2, 1 and release the safety. And your seat would go, 15 feet down to the front of this trailer and just suddenly stop.
Ooh.
And man, it rattled your teeth. And man, it really drove home how hard a hit at 10 or 20 kilometers can be. I can't even imagine what it's like at 150 kilometers an hour,
Yeah, likely so. I think education has a definitely a part to play in it. I remember as a kid before the seatbelt law was enacted in Oklahoma, we got to see, we didn't get that fun little thing with the trailer. What we got was called down to the assembly to watch the movie Red Highway, or some other horrible thing, right? Which, was more comical than anything else. I think what really did it for us back in the States when the law changed was peer pressure. Once we got into it and realized, it's really not a hassle. It's not confining. It's not a hassle. It's actually a smart thing to do. Why wouldn't you do it? And so peer pressure just became the thing. When your friend didn't do it and you got into a car, you made fun of your buddy. And eventually, they all came around.
Yeah. Peer pressure's a powerful force. Too bad I don't have any peers.
Well, there is that as well. But here's one thing to keep in mind. Most of the accidents that are in Thailand, while they are caused by drunk driving, no doubt about it, drunk driving is a problem. Seatbelts are good, but, not being drunk and driving, even better. Good idea. Speeding will definitely help. That's a wonderful thing, too. So that's great. So you're thinking, hey, great, seatbelts are good in both these cases. Yeah, well, here's where it's not. Out of all of the vehicles involved in accidents in like 2014, I think I pulled this number from, 80.67% were for motorcycles. No seatbelt on a motorcycle.
No, that's crazy. But I wonder what the age range is for people who have been killed, because I got to think that it tends to skew young because, you're a 40-year-old guy. You're probably going to drive fairly reasonably safely on a motorcycle. You're a 22-year-old kid, and you've seen some of these guys drive around town, and they on these little crotch rockets, and they just fly between traffic and stuff. I don't know how many of these statistics overlap, so I don't know how many motorcycle drivers who were killed were also drunk or were also speeding. I don't know about that, but I got to say, when some of these statistics start to bleed into each other, that's when you get some really bad statistics happening. And again, it all comes back to education. Just in Canada, drunk driving, I mean, that's almost as bad as cheating on your wife.
Yeah.
That's a really serious thing to do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, long gone are the days when it's like, I got a DUI. When you've got a DUI, man, you lose your job, you lose your friends. Nobody wants to talk to you. It is an uncool thing to do, and maybe eventually it'll happen here too.
We can hope, yeah. So I think the seatbelt fine is a step in the right direction. The way they did it was maybe a little bit poorly thought out, but I think it's good. It has to happen sometime, and
I agree.
Like you said, it's just a matter of sticking to it, enforcing it, and hopefully Thailand will drop at least out of the top 5 in the next few years. But because that's not something to be proud of.
No, yeah, we can only hope to fall out of the top 5 places I don't want to visit or be killed in a car accident. Yeah, that's just not a great thing to do. Well, here's the deal, guys. This episode's gone long, and we've been a little bit preachy, so we're going to finish it off on a preachy note for you. People ask me all the time, and I'm sure it happens to you as well, Greg, when I go live on Facebook or Periscope or Snapchat, is it safe to visit Thailand? Over and over again. It's like, yes, of course it's safe. I'm not walking around with a bulletproof vest on. However, It's not necessarily safe to drive here. So buckle up. Insist on a helmet when you take a moto taxi. They all have them. They all have all of the moto taxis have a spare helmet. Put it on, even though it's made out of slightly heavier plastic than the fairing on the bike, whatever. And just know that you are driving or riding in the second most deadly country in the world, and be safe. And welcome to Thailand, I guess.
And get travel insurance if you're visiting.
Yeah, definitely. If you're going to ride in the car anywhere, you definitely want to get that, no doubt. Do you want to jump into the love, loathe, or leave section, Mr. Greg?
Yeah, let's go into love, loathe, or leave. And love, loathe, or leave means that me or Evo springs something on the other guy who he has no inkling of what's happening. And that is an element of life in Thailand that we either love with all of our hearts, loathe with all of our hearts, or hate it so much that it makes us want to leave. So this week, I believe you have one, right?
I do, my friend. Here it is.
What's that?
The fact that chances are, whatever you're buying, lotion, deodorant, anything else, got a whitening cream in it. It's got a whitening agent. You need to be whiter, says Thailand.
Yeah, whitening cream. It's terrible. I went to buy some deodorant the other day, and it was just a quickie thing that I needed for to use after swimming. So I stopped into a 7-Eleven, which is not usually where I buy deodorant. But it all had whitening cream. Right. And I mean, think about it. The only way that your skin is going to change color is with chemicals, artificial, probably corrosive chemicals on some level.
Sure.
Yeah, I hate it. I think it's it's so wrong to see people push these commercials on TV and stuff. And basically what they're saying is if you don't have light skin, you're not beautiful. You're not worthwhile.
Yeah.
And if you want to do that, buy these harmful chemicals and smear them all over yourself.
Yeah.
I hate it.
I'm with you, man. I'm probably hypersensitive to the issue because I'm a white dude from America, and we've been made rightly so sensitive to the issue of this, and just going with your bad self. But the puzzling thing to me with the deodorant stuff is if there's one spot on my body that doesn't get a lot of exposure to the sun, it's my pits. So they're not very dark anyhow. Who's got dark pits that they want to? Why that area?
That's pretty much marketed to women who wear backless dresses or something like that who want to.
I guess, but I can't believe their pits are dark. I mean, it's like you're like signaling like a squid in the ocean. Different color schemes going on with if your pits were super white and your shoulder blades were not. That just seems like an odd thing.
It's funny you say that. That actually reminds me of an actual commercial that I saw many years ago, and I linked to it on a blog I wrote about this, but I think the YouTube video was eventually taken down for whatever reason. But it was, the whole commercial was like a guy at a lighthouse was looking out of the ocean, and the light went out, and he had to run and get some replacement light bulb, and a ship was coming, and it was a big emergency, and there was a woman who sort of came up, and I forget exactly what happened, but they shone a light on her face, and she was so white that it reflected and the ship was able to turn away from the rocks. That was an actual commercial that aired in Thailand. And if that doesn't drive home the message that if you want to be super white, you have to buy this cream, otherwise you're not worthwhile. It's such a crappy message to give to kids.
Yeah, it really is. Next time, use your armpits, guys. Come on, that's a much better way to go.
Well, thanks once again for listening to the Bangkok Podcast, everyone. If you have anything you'd like to share or a topic you'd like to hear us talk about on a future show, head over to bangkokpodcast.com and leave a comment. Or you can reach out directly to me on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg.
Or you can send us a message on either Facebook or on Twitter at simply Bangkok Podcast. I'm Evo Terra, and Greg and I will be back next week with more stories of our lives lived in the City of Angels, right here on the Bangkok Podcast. Cheers!
On this episode of the Bangkok Podcast, we talk about traffic in Thailand, specifically the seven deadly state.
There's an extra S in there.
I'm going to hate this when I get to the end of road safety.
Jeez, you're already fucking it up. Yeah. Sinbad's 7 C's.
Ugh.